Welcome back to True Crime with Johnny. Today's case is the law student strangler, Stephen McDaniel. He strangled and sawed into pieces his law student classmate, Lauren Giddings, after months of stalking her in the apartment building that they shared together. Stephen was immediately noticeable by his corkscrew, blown-out brown bear's mane afro and unkempt appearance. Stephen famously got onto local news television and tried to help out with the case. Everybody saw it, including the detectives. Being a law student graduate, Stephen was proficient in stonewalling the detectives, but the overwhelming evidence and vile Google searches would end up burying him. Let's get into the case. Stephen Mark McDaniel was born September 9th, 1985 in Lilburn, Georgia. That was a stone throw from Atlanta, Georgia. His parents were Mark and Glenda McDaniel. His mother was a homemaker and his father had been studying to become a priest, but he left the parish and became a house painter. Stephen was an unremarkable child, although he was academically inclined, and his mother's wishes for him was to become a Supreme Court justice. So she pushed him heavily in academics. After completing high school, he won an academic scholarship to college. And according to his mother, Glenda, he was heavily interested as a child in Lord of the Rings. It also appears that his father, Mark McDaniel, age 58, was eccentric and somewhat odd. An uncovered post written by his father read the following, quote, "Why am I interesting? Well, at first glance, I appear to be a crashing bore, but looks can be deceiving. I'm a house painter, but have more education than most doctors. I have a PhD and have eclectic tastes in music, films, and books." It should also be noted that Stephen McDaniel's sister was a terrible crack addict, and she had 6 children from unknown men that his mother Glenda and father Mark had to adopt because of his sister's terrible drugs problem. Some other information uncovered about Stephen prior to his law school days was by his college professor of undergrad, Eric Odell, and what he said about Stephen was, quote, "It's fair to say that Stephen was kind of quirky. He was really bright. I was trying to motivate him to live up to his brightness. He was not necessarily always given his full effort. I honestly sensed he was a lot smarter than the effort he put in, and I think Stephen might agree." Odell also said, "It was like seeing a really bizarre tattoo. I never had another student wear chainmail to class," he wrote about Stephen. "I remember on a questionnaire he wrote that he had a collection of swords. That's an undeniable and objective quirkiness that Stephen had. He always called attention to himself." Several of Stephen McDaniel's roommates from undergrad at Mercer College also came forward to give an idea of what Stephen McDaniel was like. The first was Thaddeus Money, and he worked in Somerville, South Carolina at Edward Jones as a financial advisor. And what he had to say about Stephen was the following. The first time Thad Money met Stephen McDaniel, he couldn't help laughing. McDaniel was in his Mercer University dorm room playing a video game. Thad Money, a transfer from the United States Air Force Academy, popped in to say hello, but had to retreat to his bedroom so he wouldn't crack up in front of McDaniel. Quote, "I walked back to my room and I double over laughing for 30 minutes, Money recalled. He's sitting at his computer playing this stupid MS-DOS World of Warcraft game, and he's wearing chainmail. Thad Money recalled that Stephen was very creepy, and he also said, quote, "Stephen believed he was smarter than everybody else," Money recalled. "I've got to be honest with you, I've been to school with lots of smart people, and he's as smart as anybody I've ever met." He also recalled that Stephen used to ask people he just met 2 questions that he was fascinated with. One was, what would you do if there was a zombie invasion? He'd want to know if you could find a defensible position and if you could find a place you wouldn't run out of food easily. And the more sinister question that Stephen McDaniel would ask was, if you could plan the perfect murder, how would you do it? Money said he has told police in explicit detail what McDaniel's, quote, perfect plan supposedly was. Police have said that the specifics are in line with what they believe happened to Lauren Giddings. I'm not going to get into how he said he would do anything, Money said. But it's clear that Thaddeus Money knew exactly what Stephen had planned. He, like everyone else, also had said there was no way he could have foreseen that what McDaniel had told him about the murder would play out in real life. He just thought it was him being provocative. Something else that should be noted that Money said was Stephen McDaniel was a staunch Republican. I didn't even want to talk to him about it because if you got him started about politics, he would just rant, Money said. He made Rush Limbaugh look like a Democrat. As Stephen McDaniels made his way through law school, he became more and more reclusive. He rarely left his apartment, staying inside most of the time in between his law classes, playing shoot-'em-up video games and hours on end of the most depraved pornography that could ever have been found on the internet. He also had a collection of guns and swords. His 1997 Geo Prism was driven so infrequently that the spiderwebs and cobwebs had crawled all over it. Stephen McDaniels also became a prepper. He was convinced that there was going to be a zombie apocalypse, whatever that looked like to him. And he collected food and they had dates stamped on them. Also, he liked to stalk around the apartment building late at night, and he had somehow acquired a universal key to the apartment building, which allowed him to go in and out of the rooms and different people's units. He had also had a collection of condoms that, according to the police, he had taken from someone else's unit in the building. And this is when he became infatuated with his next-door neighbor, the beautiful blonde Lauren Giddings, who was a law student classmate of his. So who was this Lauren Giddings, this bright, shining, tall, blonde law student that had the world at her feet and had a promising future before her life was ripped from her by the disgusting and reclusive Stephen McDaniel? Lauren Teresa Giddings was born on April 18th, 1984 in Tacoma Park, Maryland, to William and Karen Giddings. She had two sisters, Sarah and Caitlin. She grew up and resided in Laurel until she moved to Georgia. She was a member of the St. Mary's of the Mills Catholic Church and attended St. Mary's School from kindergarten to 8th grade. She graduated from a Holton High School in Columbia, Maryland in 2002. She also played field hockey and softball. She moved to Georgia and attended the Agnes Scott College in 2006 when she graduated with a major in political science and minored in religious studies. After graduation, she returned home and worked for the National Center for Public Policy in Washington, D.C., before pursuing a career in law. In 2008, Lauren started at the Mercer University Walter F. George School of Law, where she was the president of the Federal Society. She graduated on May 14, 2011, with a Juris Doctorate degree. Lauren also had a Pekingese dog named Butterbean, and they were inseparable until Butterbean was hit by a car and he was returned home after he sustained his injuries, where he made a full recovery, and he was no longer with her at the Barrister Hall dorms. And this brings us to 2008, when on the same week in August, Stephen McDaniels and Lauren Giddings moved into the Barrister Hall apartment complex directly across the street from the Mercer Law School that they both attended. Lauren and Stephen were complete polar opposites. And somewhere between his hours on end of playing video games in the dark and hardcore taboo pornography, he had noticed Lauren one day as she would jog frequently. And that's when Stephen began to stalk Lauren. He became obsessed with her, Googling her name, taking pictures of her. Stephen had a universal key to the apartments, and he had broken into Lauren's apartment several times and stolen thumb drives that she had with photos on them. Also, in his Google searches, he had searched all over the internet for images of Lauren. He also rigged up a GoPro strapped to a broom, and he would put it up towards Lauren's window, and he had hours on end of video content spying on Lauren. And that brings us to June 26, 2011, the day that Lauren Giddings went missing. Lauren had been studying for the bar exam, and the last time she was seen was Friday, June 24th, when she had gone out with a group of friends. But nobody had become suspicious of her whereabouts until 3 days later on the 29th of June. And at that point, her friends went and found a key that she had hidden. Even the news crews showed up, and that's when Stephen McDaniels interjected himself on the situation. He had gone into Lauren Giddings' apartment acting like he was a concerned friend, and then he did an unbelievable TV interview, which follows.
Lauren was my neighbor. We're just trying to find out where she is at this point. I mean, no one has seen her since Saturday. I mean, the last time anyone heard from her was an email that she sent out, and no one's heard from her since.
She just recently graduated from Mercer?
Yeah, she and I were both JD students. We graduated back in May.
What kind of person was she? I mean, what did you see?
I mean, she's as nice as can be. I mean, very personable, very much a people person.
Do you know any enemies she might have had, somebody that might want to hurt her?
No, we don't know where she is. I mean, the only thing we can think is that maybe she went out running and someone snatched her. Because we went over. One of her friends had a key. We went inside and tried to see if there was anything amiss. I mean, we just don't know where she is.
What about in the parking lot area? I know they've been doing a lot of. I think that's where they have recovered the body or whatever they recovered from there.
Body.
Had you seen anything there? Had you seen anything there? I mean, we don't know if this is the same person. You know what I mean? Like, they took out a body there earlier. We don't know if it's the same person or not. So that's how we're trying to ask people if they know who lived there. Are you okay, sir?
I think I need to sit down.
Okay.
And after Stephen did that horrible interview where he was obviously lying, he went and sat down. And then the bad acting continued when he came back to do another interview, and he did a fake crying act, doing his best to pretend he was surprised to find out to hear what happened to Lauren's body.
I don't know anyone that would want to hurt her. She was as nice a person as there is.
Was she moving soon? Did you know anything about her?
Yeah. She was going to be moving out today. She was supposed to move out today because someone else was going to be moving into her apartment, a new law student.
Yeah, she's from Maryland.
Yeah, I mean, she was from up in Maryland. I mean, all her family was there, as far as I know. I mean,
What's going on in your mind right now? Like, what are you thinking?
Why would anyone do this?
Did you hear anything?
No. I just heard something. Maybe I could have helped.
Okay, don't worry. Do you want to sit down for a second? Get something to drink?
So how did Lauren lose her life to this monster, Stephen McDaniel? The details of her grisly murder are as followed. On that hot, humid June 25th, 2011, Stephen McDaniel set out to commit the perfect murder. He had the universal key. He was wearing a black ski mask, and he snuck into Lauren Giddings' apartment. And her dog, Butterbean, wasn't there to alert her that somebody was in the apartment. And as Stephen snuck from room to room, one of the boards creaked, and Lauren popped up out of her bed and said, "Who's there?" And just then, Stephen McDaniel pounced on Lauren and started to strangle her. She fought back, ripping off Stephen's face mask and recognizing him immediately. And she begged Stephen to stop. "Why are you doing this?" And with that, Stephen strangled her. They end up on the floor together, where he ended up choking Lauren Giddings for several minutes straight. Her body went limp. On that June 25th, 2011, Lauren Giddings lost her life. Stephen McDaniels, meanwhile, he went back to his apartment and he grabbed a hacksaw that he had bought. And he went back to Lauren Giddings' apartment, where he hacked up her body in her bathtub. He put several different body parts in several different places, and he placed her torso wrapped in plastic in the dumpster of the Barrister Hall apartments that they both had shared together. After Lauren had passed away, what most people don't realize is she had been dead for 3 or 4 days before the police were aware that Lauren had died. And during that time, Stephen, he never cleared out any of the stuff or paraphernalia in his apartment, including Lauren's underwear, a GoPro with a SIM card with hours on end of footage of Lauren, including the packaging for the hacksaw that he used to chop up Lauren. Everybody had seen his initial interview where he knew everything. He was trying to help the police, but as soon as the police were on to him, they had asked him to come in to the police station to do an interrogation, and his demeanor changed 180 degrees. He shut down, and he thought he would stonewall the detectives. What follows is a clip from the 2-hour-long interrogation where Stephen told them nothing.
All right. I just got to ask you a few more questions.
Okay.
You came down earlier tonight, me and you talked, all right. You don't have any weapons on you, do you?
No.
That's just you are. What's wrong? You know I'm Detective Patterson, right?
Yes.
Do you remember? Put your hands up here. You remember us talking earlier tonight? Right?
Yes.
You remember me earlier in the day?
Yes.
When we came down here and talked a little bit and then we left?
Yes.
Okay. I need to know about this girl right here. You know her?
Yes.
Who is that?
Lauren Giddings.
Does she live next door to you?
Yes.
When's the last time you seen her?
2 or 3 weeks ago.
What do I need to tell her family?
I don't know.
What do you want me to tell them? I don't know. Huh? You're gonna have to tell me what to tell her family. It's all on you, brother. What do you want me to tell her family? Huh?
I don't know.
Well, I need to know. I need to know. Okay? If something happened to Lauren and you know, you need to tell me. If you know something. Because I need to know. Because her family's down here want to know what happened to her.
I don't know.
You don't know.
No.
That's what you want me to tell her mother and her father. Is that you don't know.
I don't know.
Not that you're sorry that she's missing. Not that you've been trying to help me all day find her, but you just wanted me to tell her I don't know.
I don't know.
Are you
where
a
she
sorry
is.
piece of shit that you want me to tell her that? You got your ass on that fucking news and stood out there and gave a media report that her mother saw about her missing daughter. And you want me to sit there and tell him that you don't know? Is that what you want me to tell them? Because you're all over the news. You sure stood out there and ran your mouth to the news media. But now you're going to get out here and you don't fucking know. You know. You're just a sorry piece of shit that don't give a fuck.
The police interview had lasted 2 hours, where Stephen repeated "I don't know" multiple times. After the camera had been turned off, Stephen had admitted that he had gone into several of the units in the apartment with the universal key and stolen a condom. With that information, the police were able to arrest him while they searched the entire apartment premises, and they scoured his apartment from top to bottom, where they found an unbelievable amount of evidence against Stephen. There had also been speculation that the police had planted some of the evidence, like a hacksaw and underwear, because police had been in and out of his apartment for months, and they didn't find it until months later. Although police, they did not seem to have enough evidence to hold Stephen, and he was allowed to go free. Stephen, however, was picked up soon after by the police, and he was arrested when the police had gone through his computer and found sex abuse material. He waited in that jail cell for 5 months, and finally, on November 16th, 2011, Stephen McDaniel was indicted for the murder of Lauren Giddings. Stephen maintained his innocence, and he denied all the allegations against him, but the mounting evidence, vile Google searches, including testimonials from several of the students saying that Stephen always wanted to plan the perfect murder and did it exactly the same way that Lauren had passed away. But finally, on April 21st, 2014, days before there was going to be Stephen McDaniel's murder trial, he copped a plea and admitted that he had strangled Lauren Giddings to death and then hacked up her body with a hacksaw and threw pieces of it in the dumpster outside of the Barrister Hall apartments that they both shared together. Also included in his plea deal was that he had to give a word-for-word testimonial on how he had killed Lauren Giddings. And on that April 21st, 2014, 3 years after he had brutally murdered Lauren Giddings, Stephen McDaniels avoided the death penalty, but he was sentenced to 30 years to life in prison with the possibility of parole. And he would spend the remainder of almost his entire life in Georgia's Hancock State prison system. So what do I think happened in the case of Stephen McDaniel? I have 3 different points that I came up with. Number 1, he thought he was smarter than everybody. He would walk around campus, and when he would meet people, he would ask them brazenly how they would commit the perfect murder. Even someone that lived in the dorms with him said that the way Lauren Giddings was murdered was exactly the way Stephen had told him he would commit the perfect murder. He just thought he was smarter than everybody and that people were idiots. In fact, in his Google searches, he had typed in how to escape prison. Like that's a viable option. This guy that's supposedly unbelievably smart is going to think that it's a viable option to escape from a prison. That to me sounds like either he's book smart but not street smart. And there's a big difference. The fact remains, Stephen got caught almost immediately. He wasn't nearly as smart as he thought he was. And his other technique, which he thought he was smarter than the detectives, he thought if he stonewalled them and didn't say anything, somehow that would get him off a murder. Well, that got him nothing but booked for murder. Number 2, he didn't even try to hide any of the evidence that he had. He had a universal key. He also had Lauren Giddings' underwear in his apartment. He also had the hacksaw with blood from Lauren Giddings, and he had hidden the wrapper for the hacksaw in the community laundry room for the apartment. He also had a thumb drive with hours on end of footage snooping into Lauren's apartment with this makeshift GoPro camera that he had rigged up to a stick. He had days and days and days before they had finally realized that Lauren was missing to clear this evidence. Even if he had just gone out and thrown some of this evidence into random trash cans, it would have been much easier to get away with this crime than just leaving it all scattered through his apartment. And the third reason, which I've heard thrown around in different circles, is he snapped. He was getting ready to go into the real world. He had just graduated law school and he was about to take the bar, and that meant no more hours on end of looking at depraved internet pornography and playing shoot-'em-up video games from hours on end and being a prepper, putting dates on his toilet paper, putting dates on canned foods, and living in this little secluded world where he wasn't actually in the real world. He was in college world, and he was about to go out and work probably 80 hours a week as a low-level attorney in some court somewhere, and he could have just snapped. And that's a theory that's been thrown around. And what do I think ultimately happened was all three. Stephen just thought he was smarter than everybody, and he wanted to defend himself in court. He wanted to commit the perfect murder and see if his attorney skills were good enough to get him out of a murder. And obviously his skills were not up to it, because ultimately he gave a full confession and he was sentenced for murder. Also, in the years that's followed 2014, when Stephen McDaniel was sentenced to prison, he's filed every different type of petition that's available to try to get himself out of prison, including trying to say that he had insufficient counsel defending him. And he even put his own attorney on the stand.
Graphic, specific, detailed confession that you made to Frank Hogan and I, which we were shocked about in jail, and which you went into terrific detail about how you killed Lauren Giddings, started off facing a death penalty, and ended up with life with possibility of parole. You could get out one day, Stephen, and viciously murder a woman and dismember her, and you still could be paroled. So I don't see how that's ineffective assistance.
Ultimately, none of it would get him out of prison, and Stephen to this very day sits in a dingy, dark prison cell where he'll remain for the entirety of his rotten life. Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for the next episode of True Crime with Johnny.